Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the film The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Fun fact, Viola Davis came across director Francis Lawrence's mind for the role of Dr. Gall after he saw some fan art of her in a horror role. This film came out in 2023 and stars Tom Blyth, Rachel Ziegler, and Viola Davis and was directed by Francis Lawrence. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes follows Coriolanus Snow and details how he started off as this poor student and follows him through some of the events that impacted his life and set him on a path to become the tyrannical leader of Panem. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a dystopian action film adapted from a novel. It has similar vibes to The Hunger Game, The Maze Runner, or Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. The Hunger Games was a phenomenon that took the world by storm, and I was excited to see this story about a familiar character be adapted. Honestly, I wanted a movie about why the Hunger Games was started in the first place and more explaining about what happened during wartime in Panem. But this movie was still very interesting and had me more interested than I thought I would ever be in Coriolanus Snow's life. Watching the movie, I constantly had to remind myself that this movie is not about the actual Hunger Games in the film, but about Snow's life. So it's a completely different perspective. There are plenty of callbacks to the Hunger Games series, like the Jabberjays, the name Katniss, which is a plant, Mockingjay, the Hanging Tree song, Snow's Roses, and Lucy does a bow just like Katniss did. Coriolanus Snow, aka Corio, is the main focus of this movie, and if you know anything, you will know that he becomes President Snow in the Hunger Games, who is a awful person. Tom Blythe did a good job of showing the birth of this villain, and he made him likable at first until we see hints of evil, and come to find out his motives are just for the advancement of himself. I often found myself reminding myself that he is going to become an evil person in the future. He helps Lucy get through her Hunger Games by cheating and eventually gets sent to District 12 as an officer because he cheated, and he goes and seeks her out, but behind him is just a path of death and betrayal. He is the product of Panem propaganda, and even though there are others that can see through it, all he saw was a way for him to move up in the world. He is the reason why the Hunger Games are like they are in the Hunger Games films when Katniss is in the games, because he made suggestions that made the games more cruel and more of a spectacle and got people more interested by feeling a connection to the tributes. Sejanus, played by Joss Andres Rivera, was Corio's best friend, if you call it that, and did nothing but support him and try to stop the barbaric Hunger Games. And how did Corio return the favor? By throwing him under a bus and getting him killed. Corio was right, though, in terms of how he should go about stopping the games, because he has a dad that is influential and rich, but Sejanus didn't really use those avenues to try and stop it. I do think eventually he would have gotten caught, but it was sad that it was by someone that he thought was his best friend. Lucy Greybeard was not the person who I thought would win the 10th annual Hunger Games, but with the help of Corio, she was able to. I think it would have been safe to say that Katniss was a fighter who had to become an entertainer, and Lucy is an entertainer who had to become a fighter. Rachel Zegler did a great job portraying this character who was disgusted with the Capitol and fell in love with Corey, but saw that he was not the man that she thought he was as time went on. Lucy had a heart of gold, and I must say that her singing was amazing and I enjoyed all of her songs. Her ending is very ambiguous and we don't know what happens to her, but we know that by the time Katniss comes around, she is all but forgotten. Lucky Flickerman, who is hilariously played by Jason Schwartzman, is like the comic relief in this film to loosen up the tension while people are watching The Hunger Games. Jason did a great job with mimicking the mannerisms of the Flickerman that Stanley Tucci portrayed in The Hunger Games to show that they may be related. Is there anything Viola Davis can't do? She was great as the wicked Dr. Gall, who is the game master of this Hunger Games. She was literally the definition of a mad scientist. The film did a good job of showing how twisted she was, and with Snow's suggestions, she made things even more deadly. She is very smart, but also very influential in the Capitol, and is constantly looking at ways to make the games worse for the tributes, but also make people still want to watch them. If there was one person who influenced Snow and made Snow even more of a menace than he already was, it is probably her. Cass was an interesting character, and at first I thought, gosh, he is really mean. But then I came to realize that, yes, he is mean, and he probably is an alcoholic, but he's the one that came up with the idea for the games, and that eats away at him every single day. He takes out his anger on Coriolanus because Coriolanus's dad and Cass were best friends until Corio's dad got Cass drunk and asked them about an assignment that they had for Dr. Gall, which was to think about a punishment for the enemies of, the group that they were in. And Cass being drunk thought about like the worst possible thing, which was the Hunger Games, but wasn't really serious. He had been drinking, he was drunk. It wasn't something that he was actually going to turn in, but Corio's dad turned in the assignment, and now he has to live with all of these people dying because of an idea that he had when he was drunk. In the end, he gets poisoned by Snow after Snow drops this line about how Snow always ends up on top. And this also foreshadows something that Finnick mentions in the Hunger Games films, which is that Snow rose to power by poisoning his enemies. I mentioned earlier how I would have loved to see how the Hunger Games started. And I think that's not a complaint of this movie, but that would have been an interesting prequel to focus on. I would love to learn why there are districts in the first place and why each of them are so different in terms of like socioeconomic status. Also, when was District 13 destroyed or thought to be destroyed? We do, however, get to see a lot of this film taking place in the capital, and it's still in the process of being built, so we know that this is still pretty early on for Panem. At first, I was confused because I thought that everyone in the capital was rich, but Corio and his family struggled. But mainly, I think that was because both of his parents are dead. His cousin Tigress doesn't get, paid a lot as an intern to like a fashion designer, and their grandmother can't work either. It was interesting to get more of a glimpse of the capital and what life is like there. My favorite part of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is when Lucy wins her Hunger Games. I was stressed watching her compete because she wasn't a fighter and kind of was a pacifist, and it was interesting to see her kill two people, one on accident but one intentionally. It was also interesting to see how before Snow gave her the poison, then made sure that the snakes knew her scent, and then saw how the water delivery system was a tad bit aggressive, and used that to save Lucy's life in a moment where she almost died. We also see what's going on behind the scenes of the games and how the mentors are watching this go down and aren't sad for the people that died, but more just want to do whatever they can to get their tribute to win. It was interesting to see some of Coriolanus's suggestions and how this game got people so invested to the point that they didn't want everyone to lose. They wanted a winner, and doing this saved Lucy's life and changed the course of the games forever. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a great prequel to The Hunger Games about a character that if you've seen those movies, you already despise. The cast was great, and it was cool to go back in time and see some of the events and people who played an important part in the person who would later become President Snow's life. I know that this is a one off, prequel movie, but there are so many other stories that can be told in this universe, and I hope that we get to learn more about Panem. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.